Are we waiting anyone? Can I, uh, uh, can I, once again, uh, apart from our cabinet members, thank you for turning up. We have Louise, the press, we have our support officers. Chris is here also, and Kerry from finance. We welcome them. Of course, we have our chief exec and our admin support from Sarah, and welcome to our members who've taken some time and trouble to attend this evening. Hello, Michael. Congratulations on your selection as candidate for the election, general election when it's called. And we have one member of the in the public gallery. And we have here a young woman who has attended, has aspirations to go into local government at some stage in the future. If we can all behave to give her the best experience this evening, I would really appreciate it. Thank you all. Welcome, Michael, in the public gallery. Welcome to those people who are online and watching in and either there to support or interested in what we are doing this evening. Welcome to all of those too. So our first item is the minutes. This is, I should say, a convened meeting specifically for the budget. You will recall that the announcement came rather late, which prevented us from finalising our budget in good time for our last cabinet meeting. I thanked the chair of scrutiny at scrutiny on Monday. He was very accommodating to us in moving that and holding his own corporate scrutiny meeting to look at the budget, which he did. I don't know if we've got any recommendations. I'll come to that. No, we don't have any recommendations. But from our perspective, this is our final budget as published and the one that we will recommend to full council. The minutes, therefore, I'm a little confused. Yeah, we don't have any minutes, do we? So no minutes. Declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest? I'm advised that we have a general dispensation on budget matters. Public questions. Do we have any public questions? Well, have you come to ask us a question just to see us? Well, thank you. As I said, welcome to be here and watching what we do. Therefore, our main purpose this evening is to consider, discuss, and move forward to full council the budget and council tax setting forecast for this year. If I may, before I pass over to Councillor Stevens, just make some preliminary comments about this process. As I referred to, we have been working on this process with officers since at least September last year. That is the usual process. We come out of the summer break and start straight away on our budget process. That budget process started by us as cabinet members discussing with our portfolio holders the potential savings and changes that could be made to our portfolio right from the outset, which led on to then suggestions that came forward to us as a cabinet informally from our officers and subsequent meetings that we've had amongst ourselves with the senior management team, and all of that process that led us through to finalising our budget. All of the process that involved, which was consideration of some difficult decisions we've had to make, as we've had every year, and previous administration since 2010. And all of that process has taken place, leading us to us finalising our budget, which was done after we were assured of the extra funding from government on whatever it was, 28th or 29th of January or something like that, very recently. That process has allowed us to bring forward a budget this year that has shown a change to previous budgets, in that we have tried to deliver something for our community at last. However small people may consider that to be, it is a change. It's a more positive approach. And we have, for the first time in 13 years, refused to increase parking charges. That's happened every single year for 13 years. This year, that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen on the floating bridge either. We're not putting up the charges on the floating bridge. We've committed money to some community funding, some match funding to assist our small businesses. We've committed money to providing affordable homes this year, 1.9 million. That won't stop at that amount of money. There is some potential other income, capital income coming into the council that potentially can be used to add to that amount of money and add to the affordable housing that we intend to deliver this year. We've continued with the Cross Solent ferry funding. It's important to us. It's something that we want to carry on. Residents are being sent across the Solent to the mainland, and the NHS, for their own reasons, are reluctant to fund it, but we're not. We're not reluctant to do that. We're going to take care of those people that are unfortunately having to have treatment on the mainland. So we've maintained that, and we'll do that. And what we're also going to do at full council is we're bringing a motion that will reinstate the exceptional hardship fund, something that was taken out at last full council and unacceptable to us as a cabinet, and to me personally, that should have been removed. We're bringing a motion to full council to replace that, and we'll see if that gets support, because our budget has allowed for that money to be put back in, and for us to support those people, the most vulnerable in our community on this island, to support those people as they should be supported. So that's just a brief idea of some of our things. It's far wider than that. It's in the budget papers. Those papers will go to full council. It's a public document. People are out there can look at it. Our councillor colleagues can look at it. But I'll pass over to Councillor Stevens, who has worked pretty hard on this since September, with us and alone, and with Chris Ward and Kerry in particular, to help us bring forward a budget that has a glimmer of hope and some benefit to our community at last. I'll just finally, before I go to you, Ian, the extra funding that came, there is at this stage no guarantee that that will come next year. So we have set about the budget on the process that it is a one-off for this year, extra funding. If we're lucky enough to receive that, or that and more next year, so be it. A budget will take that into account. But the budget is set on the basis of the fact that it is a one-off funding for this year. That's our understanding. Over to you, Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Chairman. It's been a long road. It's been a hard road and it hasn't come without its surprises. The surprises being thrown in at the last minute with regards to £3 million to help the medicine go down is, you know, as I said to the Section 151 officer, a sprinkling of sugar helps us along the way. But it doesn't solve the issues that we're involved with. And I'm certainly not going to go through each portfolio, because I've been warned by cabinet colleagues that not my days are numbered, but my time is limited. So What I want to do is just talk about the extra that we're going to put into, if you like, capital funding that the leader just touched on briefly, and I think it's 250,000 for the community fund to assist town and parish councils and indeed community stakeholders to achieve things that might only be an aspiration at the moment, but also things that they've got started that they need a little bit of extra assistance to see their projects through. We've also managed to put forward 200,000 to a place plan stroke business initiative grant funding stream, which will assist once again our local communities and our local business people to realise aims and objectives affect their local areas across the island. So there's something there for all the island. What isn't in the budget, and I touch back on it because this is a red letter day for car parking and raising, and actually we're not raising it this year at all. And also we've got other things that are very good to highlight, which I think is the extra funding that's going into social care, the continuance of a community wealth post that is actually going to assist with driving forward initiatives and moving forward finance through that avenue, as well as our rights of more money injected into rights of way, mainly looking at the deterioration over a period of time now with the weather being the way it is, damp, soggy, and if you like, some of the footpaths around the Isle of Wight, which are about 500 miles, I think. So I delivered in China when I was there at one stage that we've got 500 miles of public rights of way. Now, all I'll say is that what we need to do is make sure that is there for both visitors and residents. Looking at the structure, then we want to mention about the structured deficit. Structured deficit, sorry. Yeah. Structured deficit. We brought forward a deficit through from last year, which rounded up at towards the end of this year with projections is just over £6 million, and we're looking now to with our efficiency savings, etc., in our budget, we're looking to halve that and save about 3.25 million, and take forward a deficit of 3 million over the next 3 years, and service that amount by £1 million a year in structured payments. So looking at that, we've looked after today, and we're looking after the future as well. I think that we've come up with a robust budget, which is prudent. It's shown our financial prudence and responsibility, not just today, but throughout the year and preceding years when we haven't gone down the Public Works Loan Board route, and to make sure that we're not incurring the debts that other local authorities might be doing at this moment in time. So I think the Alliance administration, and thanks to our officers and the advice that we get through from our finance team to our chief exec and on to our senior management colleagues as well. And what we have done in the formulation of this budget is to make sure that each cabinet member has conferred, discussed and reviewed all avenues of service and where we can make savings in the appropriate manner, we will. If it's efficiency, that's fine. If it's cutting service costs, then we have to look at the service that might be cut alongside it or not. We've endeavoured to go down the route, and each cabinet member has taken ownership of their areas of service within their remit. Therefore, any information that we've collated and brought together as cabinet members has been brought forward in a collegiate manner from cabinet member to me, and formulating where we need to go. And what we've done is we've obviously conferred and taken advice from our senior management team. If we've got the expertise and we've got the talent and the know-how, of course we will use them. But when we go forward and take forward these plans and these initiatives, these aspirations, we have to make sure that although we assume the ownership, and we have the ownership, we make sure that we get the best advice possible. But it's knowing the right questions to ask to get the answers that are pertinent to those areas of service. So asking the questions is important when we're seeking to get the climate right, to introduce change. And I think that's important with every portfolio holder. And that's where I want to congratulate the team, my cabinet colleagues, on the way that they've gone about structuring this budget and taking things forward, but with the support and the confidence that each of us has gleaned from our senior management team. So I want to say thank you for that. So I say the ownership of the budget is on the Alliance Group, and let's hope that the Isle of Wight Council as a whole can come together at the budget meeting shortly and agree that this is a robust budget in challenging times, giving some relief to certain areas, but also facing the fact that things may well get worse before they get better. So we need to make sure that we are resilient and we've got that headroom with reserves, etc., which we have. I'm going to leave it there, Leader, because quite honestly, I feel that there'll be other people wishing to speak. There'll be questions that we can undoubtedly answer. And I think that, you know, I could, as you know me, I could sit and talk away the hours, but it's not going to do us any good at all. So let's move forward, and I'll keep quiet now. But thank you, cabinet members, and indeed our officers for coming forward and assisting us assisting me in taking this budget forward. I think it's robust, pragmatic, and it looks for the future as well as looking at what the present responsibilities are. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Before I ask whether you've got any questions, and you're looking a little blank anyway, but before I do that, could I just ask Chris, if you would give us a few words to explain the impact of the structural deficit on this authority and why it's been important to address that structural deficit now.
Well, thank you, Leader. As you'll probably all recognise, that when we talk about a structural deficit, what we really mean is that your in-year spending it's to achieve structural balance, your in-year spending needs to match your in-year funding. If that doesn't happen and there's a gap, i.e. your spending is greater than your funding, then you have a structural deficit. That's not sustainable. It's not even sustainable for the Isle of Wight Council in the short to medium, in the medium term. The only way that you can sustain a gap like that is in the short term is to meet it from your general reserves, but your general reserves are only there until they've been exhausted. And then the only other way to alleviate that gap is through savings. So in an organisation that doesn't have a large extent of general reserves, it means that you have to tackle the structural deficit in short time. It's a matter of good financial governance in any event, and you will probably have seen many local authorities in significant trouble because they've never addressed their structural deficit. They've often relied on reserves, and those reserves have run out, and now they're faced with the prospect of what's described as a Section 114 notice. Many commentators call that the point at which local authorities go bankrupt. In reality, what that means is that ordinarily a best value inspection is commissioned by government. Government put in place commissioners, which takes away your democratic leadership role. They have to be consulted on every decision that is made, and ultimately often then relates in a request for exceptional financial support from government. The exceptional financial support is often given in the form of you are allowed to increase council tax. So the burden of that will fall on the council taxpayer ultimately if the council doesn't address a structural imbalance in its budget. I hope that helps, Leader, but certainly if there are any other questions around that, happy to answer.
Thank you, Chris. Just one from me before I come to you. And so the additional funding this year has helped us to address that deficit.
Absolutely, and it's set out in, I think it's nicely set out actually in, excuse me, if you're, I think it's nicely set out in paragraph 19 of the report, which effectively says, what does the council's position look like before any savings are made and before any additional support that the council was provided latterly and lately on the 24th, announced on the 24th of January through the additional funding for local government. Now, without those additional funds and before considering any savings, the council would have walked into next financial year with an £8.5 million deficit. The council could not have sustained that. It wouldn't have had sufficient general reserves to meet a deficit of £8.5 million. So the additional funding that was awarded to the council through that additional 600 million that was announced for local government nationally was 1.6 million additional funding for social care and £3 million worth of funding for the island uplift. And as a direct consequence of the island, the cost of delivering services on an island as a direct result of being physically separated from the mainland. With those two amounts of additional funding and with £2.75 million worth of proposed savings in this budget, then the council still has reduced that overall £8.5 million deficit right down to £1.2 million. If we look, so that's an in-year deficit for 24-25. If we look ahead to 25-26, our best forecast at this stage is that structural deficit will become a structural surplus. So the council will then potentially move into surplus, but that also is predicated on a further £1 million worth of savings being made. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Chris. Is that clear? It seems that what we've managed to do is not only address the deficit, something that we had to do. We've been aided by the extra funding to do that. Not only have we done that, if we continue this trajectory, we will have money left over. Well, that would be the wrong way to describe it. We will be in a plus positive position in the next financial year, albeit with 1 million, if I've heard that correctly, 1 million to find instead of 2 or 3 times that. So that's what we've managed to do by setting the budget in the way that we set it, with Chris's help, of course. We haven't done that. And thank you for that, Chris. Thank you for the guidance to steer this authority through this pretty stormy waters that we've been through for 13 years. Any questions for Chris? Or any questions? I know we've lived this for long enough now, and so have all of our staff. And we've pretty much answered all the questions, but Julie.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Yes, just a quick question to Mr. Ward, if I may. Prior to the announcement of the extra money given to us in recognition of our separation from the mainland, I seem to recall that our settlement was something like the second lowest in England. Was that correct? Would you better give me a little bit more information on that? I think it's important for us to know what sort of low base we were on. Maybe what difference that has made to us as well.
Yeah, quite right. There's a metric that the government use, which is called the core spending power. And by the government's own metrics, in terms of the settlement uplift across all local authorities. And when we compare the Isle of Wight Council, we need to compare ourselves with other unitary councils, so other councils of similar responsibility. And the Isle of Wight Council had the joint lowest settlement of all unitary authorities in the country. And I think we were joint lowest with Thurrock, if I remember. Although Thurrock are allowed to increase their council tax, I think by 8%. Not something that the Isle of Wight Council is proposing.
And just to tease that out a little bit further, so that's that's pretty shocking base that we're at. And I know in the report somewhere, I think because I was involved, as was Councillor PC Wilcox and yourself, Councillor Jordan, and obviously, of course, our Chief Executive and Mr. Ward and others in the authority, giving evidence to government to prove in a way that they wanted our financial situation, the costs of us delivering services. And I think particularly, it was drilled down to waste, adults and children. Was there one more? I think it was those 3, wasn't it? And highways, of course, yeah. So I think that came to, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, I know, because I'm coming up my memory now, just on £24 million, like 23.8, something like that. Yeah, Devon, there we go. So that was what that's each year. That is each year. Now, we all know that. And although it's fantastic that we've had this recognition, to me, I see it as the recognition is getting over that first hurdle, because the previous councils, administrations have been trying to prove this point for years and years and years. And it's been various sums from 10 million to 63 million. But anyway, using this latest metrics they wanted, that we've come at that 23.7 million. So I see this as fantastic news. The fact they've made a recognition, they've given us some money. It's 10% of what, roughly 15% of what we actually need. So I think this is brilliant. It's a down payment as far as I'm concerned. It's that recognition, isn't it? The precedent's been set now, and now we can keep going back until we are on a level playing field with other unitary authorities across this country, because without it, we're at the bottom, and that's not good enough for our island. So I want to say thank you from me, and I'm sure all my colleagues around the table, for all the hard work that you've done over the years, and particularly, I know it's been particularly pointed this year, and because it's drilling down to the nth detail on those particular service areas. So it's a deep thank you from myself.
Well, thank you, Julie. I'm sure that's well received. A nice comment, and thanks for that. Can I just add to that the Minister has offered, which we will take up, a further meeting in addition to that settlement figure that we received. He is prepared to meet and discuss, and I'll take up that offer, and we'll go and restart the process, or whatever is needed to continue the dialogue to argue for more money than we've had. So it's not a closed door quite yet. And there might be a change of government coming as well. Might be talking to even different ministers, which would be interesting. Andrew, you'd like to speak?
Yes, thank you, Chair, as you're not taking comments from outside your cabinet colleagues. So I thought I'd give some observation from a Liberal Democrat group perspective. First of all, to thank you for engaging with us as a group. I hope we seem to have engaged constructively with you. Obviously, the £3 million at the end meant there was little opportunity for you to come and have a discussion around the impacts of that, although we did have a little bit of a discussion as well. So that's been very welcome. We've met as a group. We've considered the budget. We consider it broadly meets the priorities that we would have were we in administration. And that is good to see. And obviously, this new money is allowing some progress on things rather than the constant retrenchment and cutting that we have seen. So I would echo the comments of you and your colleagues on those who have secured that out of government. It's not enough, but it's a start, and of course does not repair the damage of previous years, which I'd like Councillor Jones-Evans referred to a down payment. I'd like about £50 million or more of back payment as well on that. Just in terms of you've all also engaged with us on the basis that it didn't preclude us from maybe bringing forward an amendment, and we might wish to do that, and I'd be very happy to have a discussion with you at some point, Leader, before we get to that stage. There's one indicative saving that on reflection we feel if you might want to strike out tonight, and that is the customer contact centre cutting of the Saturday provision. It's about £8,000. I think that's something that should be looked at more in the round of what data is driving that decision, to say is that a service that actually has great value to certain people. But I'll leave that with you. In terms of our priorities, we'd be very keen though to see a prioritisation that I know there is an emergent child poverty strategy. I hope that is urgently coming forward. It is nearly a year or maybe even a year since Council made a resolution on that. So we'd be looking for a bit more focus on child poverty strategy, on supporting those who are delivering projects relating to mental health at a community and voluntary level, and obviously with the closure of White Dash, some focus on supporting women's peer support. But those are the kind of discussions we can have in the next few days. But again, I do reiterate that broadly this meets our priorities, and obviously we're going to look forward to the debate in Council when we get to that point. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Andy, for those kind comments. I'm going to come to Councillor Stephen, then Councillor Andre. May I just comment that on the item of the Saturday you mentioned, we'll look at that. It's indicative. If we can find ways to do that differently, I'll give you our assurance that we will do so, and happy to talk with you further about that. But you can have our assurance that we will look at that and try and do something about it. And thank you for raising it. I'll come to you after, Michael, because I've got a couple of people on speak. Ian and then Debbie.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Garrett brings forward some very interesting proposals there, and I think that some that we would be only too pleased to support. But once again, with regards to the council tax support amendment that came through the other night in this chamber, whereby we tried to make policy on the hoof, if I can say. I don't think it's right that we should be making judgments here and now. We can take them away, and we can talk them through and see what we can do, and see where we can take them in a positive manner if we can. And I think that's the way we should be doing it. And we've come forward with a responsible budget. We've been responsible throughout the year without going, as I said, to any new loans or anything like that. So we really need to make sure that what we take forward into the budget meeting is something that is constructed and considered, and not something that we as members live to regret. And I don't think we should even this evening bring any of our senior management team into to the debate on this area. I think that what we need is discussion and take things forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Ian. On our behalf, I'm prepared to say to Councillor Garrett that we're prepared to look at that and consider it and have further discussions. And that's our commitment. We certainly won't decide tonight on the hoof. I agree.
Thank you, Leader. And yes, thank you to Councillor Garrett for putting forward those questions. I'd just like to pick up on the domestic abuse service. I had actually reached out with one of Councillor Garrett's colleagues, Councillor Redrup, and I'm more than happy to update Councillor Garrett. I am due to visit Paragon, who are our partners in delivering that. So I'm very happy to update you when I have visited them very shortly. Thank you.
Julie.
Sorry, Chair, it was just, yeah, sorry, Chair, I just wanted to get clarification that I've got some things I'd like to talk about, particularly on the budget within my portfolio. Just didn't know when at the meeting you wanted to do that. So just let me know when you're ready to bring the cabinet in to talk on our portfolio. Sorry.
Just briefly, Chair, that is why I skitted through what I skitted through, because I think that the hard work that each cabinet member's done within their remit, if they'd like to highlight an area, I think that's the appropriate way to do it, and not have.
Thanks, Ian. Michael.
Thank you, Chair. I just really wanted to, I suppose, make a couple of points more than questions, because particularly regarding adult social care, I have actually been talking to Kerry and Chris this afternoon, and that's helped me understand particularly my concerns about moving ahead in adult social care. I need to catch up with the director, Laura Gordian, and Debbie Andre, because there was a meeting this week with providers. I felt it was important that I wasn't there as the chair of policy and scrutiny committee for health and social care. But just my concern on the budget was there was enough maneuverability within the budget, because it's such an important budget. It's the biggest chunk, and it obviously helps the most vulnerable, particularly the older community and those with a variety of needs. And I wanted to be assured, which I was by the Section 114 officer, that there was enough maneuverability in discussions regarding staff and providers and side. But I just really, my committee will be looking at this closely, and we will discuss the budget after it's finalised in that regard, because we were going to have a informal meeting about the budget linked to other budgets, like because they're all interrelated. The ICB on the 26th, we've put that back, but there will be a private and informal meeting regarding that afterwards. My other particular point was I have raised some questions at full council about child poverty and the anti-poverty strategy, and I, got straight answer back that has still not been put in place, although obviously I will remind members it's nearly a year ago when a motion was was accepted by this council regarding an agreed reduction of child poverty by 2028. And in fact, in the last 12 months, it's actually gone up. So I suppose want to get, some reassurance that we do get child poverty and an anti-poverty strategy in place. I was very pleased that one of the officers this week is having a meeting with the Isle of Wight Community Action in that regard, which perhaps should have happened before, but at least it's happening now, and that we really do. I also wish to thank the very strong response and involvement from the new Director of Children's Services, who is actively getting out and talking to organisations on the people of ground, which is very much appreciated, because I don't think that was necessarily happening before, but it is happening now. So I'm pleased with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. If I may, just on adult social care, it's been confirmed to me, we are putting in 6.3 million pounds this year. I'll ask Chris in a second to comment on manoeuvrability of that money. He's pretty good at manoeuvring money around, so he'll explain what manoeuvrability we've got. But just before I come to that, Chris, absolutely, Michael, child poverty, it's something that we should all be concerned about, are concerned about, and must do something about. In difficult, tight financial circumstances, we've done our best. I'm really encouraged by your comments and our new director who's come in and put the light switch on for a new dawn for this authority, a renewed dawn after 10 years of our partnership with Hampshire, and encourage that this holistic approach and dealing with that will be one of the key factors that he and his team are going to be looking at as he gets more into the role. I know, can I come back to you after, Mark? Because I know Debbie just wants to make a comment. Yeah, do you want to? Yeah, quickly then.
I think it's important on the child poverty that the things like the food pantries and various others funded that's going, which has been good, and I'm not criticising it, it's had an effect. But a lot of organisations, and I was in a community forum today, were concerned that they don't know what's going to happen with those funds and whether the community pantries, because the government hasn't sort of announced, I think it's the Home Support Fund, on the 31st of March. So there's a lot of anxiety on that side. The other I would like to state, particularly on mental health, because I'm the council's mental health champion, I was very disappointed that Public Health cut a very good fund, a mental health support grant fund, and definitely just re-emphasise that is one area that we definitely, as a Lib Dem group, do want to discuss and bring back, because that fund was very much part of the Alliance's original priorities. It was seen, and 28 projects received money from the 2 tranches of 50,000 in the first 2 years of this alliance, and they have changed people's lives. 2 of them came to my committee, and actually the NHS was actually congratulating them, and there were GPs there on actually the results of those projects. And I think we should find a way, possibly through the Community Resilience Fund, the allocation, that is reinstated, because it's got a system in place of that. And then there's been evaluations done, particularly by Healthwatch, that have actually said that these are really needed. It's been a real seed money pump priming success story. So it's very sad that that has gone, and we want to get it back. Thank you.
Thanks for those comments, Michael. Debbie and then Ian.
Yes, thank you, Leader. We are developing an anti-poverty strategy that is an overarching strategy. And I'd like to reassure Councillor Lilly that we are taking this forward with a draft action plan emerging with a view that we are shaping a strategy for all ages of the community around 4 key themes that have been identified. So it's promoting the mental and physical well-being of those impacted by the cost of living, helping people to become economically independent, and I'll come back to that in a second, improving access to affordable food whilst minimising waste, hence the community pantries and other initiatives, and embedding collaborative, sustainable local support initiatives. Now, the Household Support Fund that Michael quite rightly referred to was under my portfolio when I was Cabinet Member for Children's Services. That has now transferred across to adult social care. So I have been involved with that since it was instigated. We're now on Household Support Fund 4. Yes, it's true to say that we don't know whether there will, at this point in time, whether there will be a Household Support Fund 5. Our experience of previous funds is it has been left until the last minute and then, which does make it sometimes difficult for our teams, but our teams have always risen to the challenge. I would just like to make the point with the community pantries that the intention was always for them to be self-sustainable. And we are looking at a range of initiatives to enable those initiatives to continue, but to be self-sustaining and supporting. But we are very, very mindful of the impact of cost of living. In terms of the mental health piece, as Councillor Lilly will be aware, and I know it's actually an agenda item, I think, for the next on the next policy and scrutiny for health. We will be looking at the sorry, just lost my thread through looking at this. On the that's Project Fusion, sorry, Project Fusion, which is it's a collaboration between Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. A new foundation trust has been formed to deliver on community mental health and learning disabilities. So one thing I would say is that we work extremely closely and extremely well. We know the financial constraints that we are under. We work extremely well with our partners to make sure that we are still delivering to the best of our ability. And I'm very grateful to officers for the work that they do in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Ian.
I think it's all been said, and I think we should move on and discuss other elements of the budget. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Chris, we just a quick word on manoeuvrability so that Councillor Lilly is comforted by the money that we're investing in social.
Of course, the Cabinet Member and the Director have complete flexibility about how to use the totality of the adult social care budget, and I'm sure that between them, they will direct those resources to their statutory duties and the highest priorities of adult social care. So there's always the opportunity to move money around within the budget in order to meet their constraints. I think I recognise the question, Councillor Lilly, also, but the council does hold a corporate contingency for all risks as well. So even in-year risks that are for one reason or another unavoidable and unmanageable, the council will have some financial capacity to respond. That said, that is only for in-year risks, and ultimately any financial pressure associated with something that happens in year would have to be accommodated in a future year.
Thank you, Chris. This could be a politician. Any further questions about the budget? I'm happy to move this forward if we've said enough about this.
Is this the invitation to talk about our individual portfolios in the budget? Chair, are you moving on? Is that what you're moving on to? Sorry.
I think that
We've got all written long speeches, you see.
I think cabinet member announcements is to follow this, Julie. Let's deal with this and move on to cabinet member announcement. Any further comments or
Sorry,
questions?
Chair. Well, yeah, it's particularly want to talk about our part of our portfolios, the budget forthcoming.
Absolutely.
Yes, yeah.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, but if you want to go around the table, that's just, I'll start. Okay, I'll start. I'll get us going. Okay, let's go. Yeah. So as you said, when you started off, Chair, I haven't written a long speech, I was just joking, by the way. As you said at the beginning, it's been a long process. We started it in September, and you can't imagine the amount of work that goes into it. No sooner have we set a budget, you're running with it for a couple of months, then you're looking at next year's budget. It's a constant process, and dealing with the vagaries of the general economy, and as Mr. Wall said, all the other things that come out of the woodwork they have to deal with as you go along. But as always, we always strike to have obviously a balanced budget, essentially, also to continue delivering our services. And I'm particularly grateful for all the work that's done at One Leisure, and grateful for the COVID fund that was set up. That was a very thoughtful thing to have done when that was done in 2020 probably ish, because particularly for One Leisure, it has been, it was a cliff edge from going to contributing to the council's coffers to being having to be supported. And I have to say, for a service like that, to be profit making, as it was before COVID hit, that was really exceptional for in the world of public leisure across the country. So really an outstanding service. So I think 100% it deserves to have that support of the COVID contingency fund. So obviously the draw on it is coming down each year, and all indications are that we will at some point in the near future, I hope, reach that balance point, or hopefully coming back into the black again. So I just want to say thank you for the continued support of that, because that's so important to our residents who don't have opportunities to go elsewhere. They can't shop around. We don't really have that much on the Isle of Wight. So for the quality that we offer on the island, the one-to-one help you can get if you got a one card, the amount of classes you get. I mean, Councillor Luciani and I are both one card holders, and we certainly get our value out of our one cards, that's for sure. I'm sure there's many members of staff here at the council that also do so, and recognise the work they do. So that's just one part of my portfolio. Talking about poverty, of course, the best way for a place to come out of poverty, well, one of the ways is to have better jobs, better opportunities, having that aspiration. And also what we're also looking at doing is obviously keeping more young people on the island, so they can enjoy not only a good career, but also enjoy the life that they have, as far as the beautiful land that we live in, and the opportunities we have with culture as well, the Isle of Wight Festival and so on. So if you've got a good job, it's a pretty good place to live, really, if you can afford to raise a family and so on. So that's what we continue to do the work. And obviously my portfolio took a big hit last year in last year's budget, and I just want to sort of recognise all the hard work done by members of the team that have stepped up to take on some of the work, because the work didn't stop, believe me, and as you know, we've had two major grants come in, obviously the Ride Town Fund, as you know, Chair, and then it seemed to be a few weeks later we were told about the Greenway. £33 million worth of investment on top of the other projects that we're doing. So it's an enormous amount of work, and I know how difficult it's been, and I know that people are working extra hours and also dealing with the vagaries of the economy with costs going up as well. So delivering projects is more and more challenging. It seems to be on a daily basis. So I just want to give thanks to the teams that are doing that, because you might look at the savings we're offering up, and that's just coming from culture, so the heritage service, and that's to do with people retiring and jobs being emerged. So you probably think, oh well, you're all right, Julie. Nothing, you haven't got any cuts to make. Well, we did this year. We really did, and but I'm just so thankful we're able to still move on and move our economy forward to increase our wages and opportunities. So the just touching briefly on the Place Towns initiatives, that's really something that as you both touched on, Deputy touched on, this was really to support our towns, places that have already have place plans in that have already gone out to public consultation and have been accepted and adopted. So we've got Shaping Newport. We've been out last summer to our second consultation. You've got Cowes and Northwood. Of course, Rides. I've got a place plan as well, but hopefully that will be covered off by the investments coming to Ride. I think, but the newest kid on the block in that zone is the Bay place plan, and I think when you go to the consultations and you hear from all the people that have given up time to, and they really have given a lot of time for these communities to bring these plans together. Just a true grassroots consultation. You always hear, but nothing's going to happen. You haven't got any money. It's just going to sit on a shelf again, isn't it? And so this fund for me is going to be, enabling seed funding for some of the projects that have come out, because they've got action plans and all of these aspirations. I went to a Cowes event very, very recently, and I was absolutely flabbergasted by the detail they'd gone into about what they would like to do. And I know Sandown and Shanklin and Lake are also on that journey. So it's a way of just, there've been some seed funding there to pump prime projects, that it's capital projects, but it'll be very local. So we're yet to get the details of that. So it could be that a town centre, wants to have, I don't know, more hanging baskets or more seats or something. It could be something as simple as that. It'll be whatever that place has come from, because the argument that I had, not the argument, but what I put forward was, well, that these plans have had a great deal of consultation and they've come from the people, so it's easier to actually say yes to things. They've been through a process. So looking forward to that coming forward. And I'm now going to stop because I'm actually getting quite excited about the budget now. I know it's not something I normally say, but I think we've done a really good job. I think everyone involved has come out to a good place, and I look forward to the debate at full council. And I know not all members of the council are here this evening to ask questions. So it's an open invitation. If anyone's got any questions or anything to do with my portfolio, capital programme, the revenue programme, whatever, then I'll be very open to any questions or phone calls even. I do take telephone calls as well. Thank you, Chair, for indulging me. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. To hear the passion and enthusiasm is uplifting, to be quite frank. Maybe it's our overall budget that's slightly different this year is having its effect. It's making people be a little more positive. And I do know that you've engaged in that process way before any information was brought forward about the budget. And I know you do that throughout the year. And thank you for all the work and effort and energy you've put in. Karen.
Just two things. So basically touching on that really. So my teams I worked on through the year. So thank you to them and senior staff for finding those even before we got to the process. So that took a bit of pressure off of me. But the thing I want to talk about actually isn't in my portfolio. It's the money for the highways drainage schemes, which is something when we were talking about what we wanted to do is close to my heart. So I appreciate I appreciate that being put in, colleagues. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. That's an investment that we're making to help those people that were so badly affected by the flooding that we've seen. And so in those areas worst affected, we're going to put some more intervention to make sure the drainage is as best as it can be in times of flood. So that's our commitment to those people. Thank you for that, Karen. Paul.
Yeah, I was this time last year I was talking about planning, and the budget for planning I think was less than £1 million a year. So I'm thrilled to bits that I've got lots more money in my budget for this year. Coastal protection and flooding, yes. I'm very pleased to see more money going into coastal protection. I don't know how far that money will go into coastal protection, because we are seeing huge issues within our coastline at the moment. One of the things that I've wanted to do as the cabinet member is to be much more visible with our officers also, and we are having sessions speaking to the coastal communities and the parish councils involved in those, talking about what are the issues. And it's important for us to share information with our town and parishes about what we are doing. I think for a long time now, we have not invested in coastal protection measures. One of the things that I've learned recently is that if you don't invest in your coastal protection assets, then the Environment Agency will not help to match fund any repairs. So again, we are desperately trying to repair those coastal protection issues across the island. We're talking to town and parish councils to do that. So I think that money for coastal protection will go a long way. And I think myself and the team will want to make sure that we get the very best value out of that amount of money. Again, it's not my portfolio, it's yours, of course. But again, the work on the drainage and the gully systems on the highways are really important. We've had lots of places flooding because of that, and it's really good that we've agreed and we've managed to find the resources to invest in that important service, which I think in the recent storms that we've had has had an impact on many people's lives. And Karen would know that from her emergency planning portfolio, as I do as well. I think we both, I think the three of us share flooding to a certain extent, but we have worked together to be able to make things better, hopefully within budget, should it be should it be supported. Good to see within the capital programme match funding that we've got from places like the Environment Agency for other coastal protection schemes in the next few years. Consultation took place in November about some of the works that are going to happen at Sandown on the seawall there, and also on the embankment, to stop the Isle of Wight becoming the Isles of Wight. Hopefully we'll see some of the work starting on those within the next 6 to 7 year programme. So good news, and it puts me in a position where I can actually push through and try to get the support of the communities to address some of the issues that have been long-standing in these areas for a very long time. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Paul. Jonathan.
Thank you, Chair. I'll speak very briefly.
Sorry.
No comment about you, Paul. I've always found this an odd meeting because we've been, as has been said earlier, working on this budget since last summer. And what we're doing today is simply making a recommendation. The real debate comes at full council. So I think this is the 6th one of these I've sat on the cabinet to do, and it does feel odd to not have the full debate when presenting the budget. I would just comment briefly on Councillor Garrett's mention of the contact centre, because that comes under my portfolio of corporate functions. But I think actually, Leader, you've said all that needs to be said. We will, of course, look at that, as that has been raised. And I also note the comments of Councillor Lilly, who he has left now, in relation to child poverty, and also his comments in relation to our new Director of Children's Services, which I heartily endorse. In relation to children's services, of course, during the process of the budget being worked up, we have seen the end of the partnership with Hampshire. So that has meant that in this portfolio area, there has been some caution to steer a steady ship as that change has come about and now, of course, is in place. But I'm very pleased to see that in the budget, we've been able to allocate 5 million of additional spending for children's services, which will help deal with the ever-present pressures in the system. And we also have 2.1 million in the capital programme for schools capital maintenance. And of course, that will tie in with the fact that we are going to see during this year the launch of a major project looking at the quality of our education on the island, and the school estate is of course very much part of that. I think that's all I really want to say, but I would like to echo the comments made in relation to the support for issues relating to flooding. It's been an issue that's affected some parts of my ward in Brading very severely. And I do hope that following the various investigations that are taking place, the fact that there's some money available will enable people to receive appropriate help. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jonathan. As you say, another commitment by this authority to try and take care of those people in our community that have suffered from flooding. Debbie, do you want to say anything? No.
Thank you, Leader. I think I've covered what I want to say. Thank you.
We're going to move forward. Just before I do, I just want to make a couple of things very clear. I'm aware of some narrative that's been circulating. From where and to where it goes, I don't know, but I'm aware of the narrative. I'd just like to make it very clear that the process of this budget started last summer. As you know, as we all know, it started in earnest after the summer break, as it has every year that I've been in the authority, around September. And that part of the process of us as cabinet members was to engage with our directorate and our directors on issues in our portfolios and to consider potential changes and savings at that stage. This is back last summer and last September. Each and every one of you did that. I know I did extensively. And I know from talking to you, you all undertook a similar process. And what that led to was almost now an infamous list of potential savings. Councillor Quirk referred to it at scrutiny earlier this week on Tuesday. And its existence is well known because every administration has seen a list of that nature during their term of office. I've certainly seen it in this term of office, and I've seen it in previous terms of office that I've been in this authority. It's a list of potential savings. That list was brought forward to us on the basis that each and every one of us as cabinet members had inputted into that list before that list was compiled, just so that we're very, very clear that the narrative here is that that document became part of our administration's work in progress to set this budget for this council, certainly to recommend to full council the budget. So just that we are very clear that at no point were officers working on this budget alone. That has never been the case. When this process started, it was due to us as cabinet members in our portfolios and their subsequent data compiled to bring forward to us as a cabinet suggestions of which we had already been aware. I know in my own portfolio, I went through the entire list of potential savings in transport and infrastructure, the entire list, long before this infamous list was presented back to us. So I just want that to make that very clear, because there's a narrative that list was somehow compiled somewhere by officers and brought as a fait accompli to us. Nothing could be further from the truth. So I want to make that very clear. And discussions that are to come, I'm sure, will make it very apparent why I'm making this point so doggedly at this moment in time. And that leads me on to the second part of this, is that papers and documents and data and presentations that are brought forward during the budget process of an administration, and I say an administration, not just this administration, previous administrations and previous administrations. All of those papers and documents are they're working documents and they're confidential to the administration. They have never been shared outside of the administration. Not just this year, not just this administration, but the previous administration and the previous administration that I was in before that of independence. Never has those working documents been shared outside of the administration. I want to make that absolutely and plain and clear, so that any future discussions can depend on the statement that I've just made and the information that I've just given, so that we do not have to be in an environment where there is confusion and misunderstanding about information in this council. Ian, I know you want to speak, so please do.
Just to give the benefit of my experience since 2001, yeah. I've sat both sides of the chamber, as you're aware, and as most people are aware here. I've brought forward budget amendments, and at times when I've sat there and gone through, as I said the other evening to Councillor Quirk, that you know, I use the audit, the last audit paper of the year, July's audit paper, to look at the RAG assessments and read the narrative to gain some knowledge on where I needed to go with any budget would-be budget amendment. I was never given access to the Section 151 officer. I was given that access to one of the finance team. Now, I didn't mind that. I accepted it as part of the rules of play. If you're in opposition, then you don't expect someone to bowl and bat in the same match, in the same innings even. What you expect is, okay, your Section 151 officer to go with the administration and work through, and you expect one of his finance team to come and work with you. So I accepted that on face value. Where we as an administration have been quite open, we haven't tried and close the door on access to senior management team, neither would we. But it has happened in the past, I can assure you. The other thing about it is that when you start to look at the paperwork and the paper trail even, and certain aspects of conversation, dialogue and discussion amongst your cabinet remit, of course that's not open to everyone to look at, whether it be an elected member of the Isle of Wight Council, the media, or indeed the residents out there. It would cause the hairs to run, and unfortunately it would also cause some unrest amongst either staff or residents or stakeholders, etc. So until you actually come up with a budget, then, to be quite candid, everything should remain with the person or with the people that are actually bringing forward the budget. That's not cloak and dagger. That stops the hair running. That stops innuendo. That stops unrest out there with people who are looking to become stakeholders, become employees, etc., etc. It's about keeping the status quo as it is until decisions are made, in which case if there's a decision made to change to change the pathway on which we're going, then so be it. I just want to touch on these elements from this year, because as you know, I've been involved with this, well, for quite a few months now. And what I want to say about it is that some of the discussions in informal cabinet have been quite heated. Now we don't broadcast that, and we don't say, and I'm not going to say what elements, but I can assure you that every cabinet member that sat here has argued, agreed, discussed, disagreed on the various elements of their remit. And that is what goes to pulling to a robust budget together. What I would say is that, of course, we take advice from officers, and so we should. They're the professionals. But I can assure you that the elected members are out there batting for their residents, batting for their side of the council chamber. And we've got them where, you know, we have people that totally disagree with, okay, I've got an efficiency saving here, and it affects someone else's budget. And then you don't need a narrative. You certainly don't need the dialogue. But what you do get is quite a heated discussion over what is meant to come into a budget and what isn't. And that, to be quite candid, is the meat on the bone as far as setting a budget. Setting a budget isn't down to officers coming in with a sheet of paper telling you, okay, you can save this and you can have that. That's far from where we are. And when you set a budget, and when you've got colleagues that want their say, and you've got colleagues that fight their corner as much as, okay, we can give a little here and take a little there. As much as that, you've got to realise that at the end of the day, it's the members that bring it forward. It's the member, and I noted this afternoon, we even had a little debate on who was top of the list, whether it was Councillor Jordan or myself, and I opened it up. Agenda item 5A actually said the leader. I'm third in the list on the back page. Hang about. So I said, okay, so you present it. And what I did say to fellow members is that each of you have an area of importance. It's coming through this budget paper. Be prepared to mention that. And I will say that it's a damn team game putting a budget together. It's not one person, and it's not one person giving their own point of view. I will say to you that this is a budget by the Alliance team, ably supported by our senior management team and our Section 151 officer and the senior staff there, Kerry Hubbledane. I did want to mention Kerry because she's always there. It's a fountain of knowledge, and you know, very, very good, very, very good. As much as Chris can manoeuvre, Kerry comes forward with the right data at the right time and the right assistance when we need it. So I'll say thanks to both of those, and thanks to the chief exec, well, of course, you know. But we are a team, folks, and come budget day, that's where we're going to be solid as a team. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. But I'm just going to make one final point. I just must make this because some of your comments reminded me of this, and I wish I'd said it just a little few moments ago, but I'm going to say it now because you refer to our officers and our team, and it's important that our officers and team are protected and safe, and we are concerned that they are not exposed to undue behaviours in this council by any person. And to revisit my comments on the narrative, the confidentiality of the working process of a budget is accepted. It's enshrined in the Constitution. And in this instance, to further support that the Constitution tells us that our working papers and documents are confidential, we've secured independent legal opinion and advice that also supports that position, that our working papers bringing forward the budget process is confidential to the administration. So I want to make that point very clear. And then finally, there's a narrative that I may have instructed, I may have even used the word myself, officers to not disclose information. I want to make it very clear that that has never been said, that there's a misunderstanding of information, and that the confidential nature of documents and process and data would be the only documents and data and information that I would have not allowed to be shared for the reasons that I've spoken earlier. It's confidential, and that any other data, if asked for, must be responded to. Now, as leader, as administrations, I can't even prevent that. Elected members have some rights and as councillors to access information. We don't have the monitoring officer here, but or that support, but I'm sure they would be able to comment on that part of the process. But from our perspective and my perspective, this misunderstanding that I am hearing of revolves around information that I may have suggested they could not have. That is not true. I have never and would never attempt to prevent elected members in this council from access to information. All they need to do is ask for it. But one thing they will not see is the confidential information that we have used to bring forward this budget process. And very, very finally, those elected members that decided when the offer went out from me and this administration to work with us on a council budget, which is quite interesting. Some of those people are supporters of a committee system where we're all going to work together. Let's see how we get on with that, because when offered to help us work on the budget, some members did. I can tell you that the members that agreed to work on that budget and engaged all saw the confidential information. All of it. It was given to those members and they've seen it. The only people who haven't seen it are those that choose to sit outside the administration and sit outside of the budget process we've been to. Thank you for that. I hope I've established some facts on the ground, so to speak. I'm going to move this forward. I'm going to propose that we move forward with this budget. Heavens above, not read the recommendation because it's pages and pages, although very thorough. I'm not going to read it, but thank you for it. I'd want a seconder, and well, thank you, Ian. Ian seconded it, and I'm happy to move to the vote. Those in favour of recommending this full council, please show, and I will do the same. That's absolutely unanimous. Thank you all. Any members' announcements? You all had a good go at this, you know. Oh, Julie, okay.
I think you meant to say, oh, Julie, didn't you? It came over like, you know, not quite as enthusiastic as you meant to. Yeah. I'm going to just very quickly. I don't know if people are aware, Arts Council nationally, Arts Council England, sorry, have decided to the national portfolio organisations that get funded for 3 years, and the Isle of Wight went last year, sorry, 2022, from 2 MPOs they're called to 5. Those have all been extended by a year, so now 4-year funding, which is good news for those organisations, and good news for culture and creativity on the Isle of Wight. So that automatically they have to put obviously put their plans in, and they need to be accepted. But basically, it's been extended for another year. So that's good news for us. That the Arts Council all have just announced the opening of MEND Fund, which is the museums. Basically, it's a building fund for museums, and we are going to be putting an expression of interest in for Newport Guildhall. So that's good, and I think this could be the final round of MEND at the moment, and we're still waiting to hear regarding Dinosaur Isle. So hopefully we'll better make hope we get some good news. So I think we're supposed to hear at the end of March. So definitely by the end of the financial year, we'll know what's happening there. So just a couple of points. I just thought it's interesting to hear that we're still, and also the LIF, the Libraries Improvement Fund, which we've got Cows and Ride both got bids in, so waiting for those. So, thanks again for the teams within those service areas that do put a lot of effort into putting these bids together, and we've got a really good track record at the moment. So I think the more we're successful and deliver these things, and government will go, well, look, Isle of Wight, here you go, it's a bit more because you're doing a good job. So, and I think I was speaking earlier. It is a lot of work for people to put bids in, and looking after our buildings is important, but also doing nothing with buildings is expensive as well. They become more, as you know, with the Ryde Town Hall, for instance, you go back to 10 years, what it would have costed, and now, so it's really important that we look to the future, and we keep looking for opportunities, not only for ourselves, but also to work with others. And I'm working at the minute, the big piece of work started this week, 2 pieces of work, again, looking at the film industry, wanting to get us match fit for film. On the island, especially in the skills area, especially with Sparks and Chippies, that's really important. So I'm looking at doing an application to the British Council for an international collaboration as well. So that's working with Creative Island. And this evening, I'm just going off to Strings, our fantastic live music venue in Newport, and Platform One are hosting a careers event for young people in the creative industries. So I'm looking forward to that. So a lot going on, as ever. Try and bring a bit of colour and joy into your meeting, Councillor Jordan.
Brighter council and a brighter community for it, Julie. Thank you. Karen.
I just wanted to say for the capital programme for last year, the crematorium has been refurbished and it's looking great. And I wanted to let you all know that the pews that were in there have been given to ability dogs for young people, so that they're repurposing them and selling them on and making money for a well-worth charity. It does good things.
Nice pews that they were, actually, as well. That's it. Any further announcements? I'll move on to members' question time. Andrew and Chris are here. I'm happy to take any questions or from any of you. Yeah, thank you. I've been reminded we have a written question that and it's from Councillor Andrew Garrett. Andrew, it's going to be a written reply. Do you want me to read this out? I'm quite happy to,
I think if you could summarise your reply, so my question broadly is around the route from Newport to Kells, seeing that as a strategic route. Obviously, the planning committee's decision to approve the development at Acorn Farm has an impact on the highways. It was a shame that planning didn't spend more time actually considering that. But I think what I'm looking for is a start of a dialogue about this is a strategic route. If there is to be more development along that route, it is going to have ever more impact on a route that struggles, particularly when the utilities dig up our roads, or there are other sort of needs to put in temporary lights. So if you can summarise, and then we can go from there. But it's just to start a dialogue, leader, around that.
Thanks, Andrew. It's written, so you'll get a copy. The reply, I'll try and summarise. It also, which I learned, I'm all excited, I learned that this was put onto our council website. So all of the questions and answers are there to see, which I don't know why I thought that was unusual, but it's really helpful. The only thing I would say, and he's not here tonight, but most of the questions from Councillor Brodie. I mean, there's 50 odd questions and 49 with Councillor Brodie. Bless him, he's active member. Andrew, just to say, personally, I absolutely support your concerns. I've voiced those very concerns in Ryde, where numbers of developments in a particular area have been proposed, some approved, and the infrastructure around seems to have been not fully taken into account, both in terms of funding it and actually providing it. So personally, I'll give you an assurance that we absolutely will not only start the dialogue, but find a solution. It's absolutely important. We need those houses, absolutely do, more so that they're all affordable. But it's absolutely right and proper and important that we get our infrastructure right. We cannot keep adding to those infrastructure problems that we already see from an enormous growth in vehicles on our own. Absolutely assure you, Andrew, the dialogue's open. The door's always open anyway. The dialogue's open, and let's find a solution that suits the specific problem you've got. Paul, do you want to comment on that?
Yes, I'd like to thank Andrew for his work on the supplementary planning guide documents, which I think is really, really important for those in Acorn Farm. One of the things that is so important with recent large scale developments is the need to make sure that they are fit for purpose, fit for the 21st century, and we have the infrastructure to go with them. I think that is absolutely essential, and this is one of the reasons why we have made amendments within the island planning strategy to include exactly those things. A policy for infrastructure, INF1, is there, and it helps our planning officers and our planning committee to be able to have more input into drainage, flooding, and issues such as infrastructure, transport within their ward. So it's really, really important. But thank you so much for the work and the energy that you've put into it. So thank you.
Thanks, Paul. I hope you're happy with that, Andrew. Thank you. Chris.
Yeah, so I just wanted to thank Paul Fuller for his dedication to the cause of our pension fund and his response to the call for an elected member to join the pension board. So to our great surprise and pleasure the other day, he came forward and announced his intention to do that. And the question is that, of course, we will need a nomination from the Alliance under the proportional basis for the committee for a replacement of Paul. And I wondered if you had had time to consider that. We do have a great deal of work to do within the pension committee, and an early replacement to get them into the training cycle would be greatly appreciated.
Thanks, Chris. We discuss it briefly today. We'll discuss it next Tuesday and do our best to fulfil the important role that committee undertakes. Supplementary, Chris?
Well,
of course.
Not really a supplementary, another question. There was a meeting last weekend regarding the military road, which was hosted by Councillor Nick Stewart. A very significant issue for the people of the West Wight. And there were quite a number of councillors who attended that meeting. None of the cabinet were unfortunately able to attend it. There's a follow-up meeting on that very shortly, and I wondered whether any cabinet member will be able to turn up next time.
Forward us the dates, Chris, or Nick, if Nick's organising it, and whoever's available on that date and time will come, including myself, if I'm able.
I'll gladly send it on. I do have the details from Councillor Stewart now.
Okay.
And a third question, if I may.
Final question, Chris. I'll indulge you with the final question.
Okay, it is members' question. So the final question I've been sent is at corporate scrutiny on Monday, you undertook to forward an email to the chair of corporate scrutiny. It had not arrived earlier today, and he wondered whether or we wondered, all of us, I suppose, wondered when that might arrive.
I'll deal with that as soon as I can, Chris. I didn't give a time on that, but I'll deal with that as soon as I can. There may be some reductions in it. In fact, I have it up in front of me now. There are some other references in it that are not due with the issue that you're looking at, and therefore I might have to redact it. So I'm looking at that and we'll deal with it as soon as I can. No further questions? With the forward plan. Any comments on the forward plan? I noticed from our paper on the table, this one was published today. I assume the one in our papers wasn't published today. Yeah. So the one on your desks is the one published today. Is there quite? Oh, it's only me. Should we pass it around? Yeah, but nobody's got. That's rather difficult. We don't have it to look at, and you can look at the old one, but we've looked at the old one and we know where we are with that, but that's unfortunate. Everyone's online.
Chair, to say, could it perhaps be indicated if there are any substantive changes? Because we did look at one last week. I'm not aware of anything due to be added.
I agree, Jonathan. Thank you. If there are any substantive, do we know that? There are 2 or 3 amendments to the one we considered last week, so I think Jonathan's right. So the two differences are amendment of terms of reference to the local pension board, which is interesting for the question we just had, and updates to staff and member car parking policy. They are for full council decisions, both in fact, no, in March. No comments on them? Well, we're happy to accept those on the forward plan. Okay. But that being no further questions, we'll call the meeting to a close. Thank you to everyone who's attended and your patience this evening. It's 6:38 and that's the end of the meeting. Thank you.